All right. I'd like to pick up where I left off yesterday. Um I was going over the first step. Actually, what I believe is the keys to the first step, in which most 12-step programs, what they say is that they talk about honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And some even refer to an attitude of intolerance or indifference of spiritual principles, citing that these things could defeat us in our recovery. Um, and when I talked about the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness, and how one should examine their attitude, and actually inventory the attitude, and that would be even a thorough examination of why I feel I should do, look at my attitude, or actually what has happened to me. Because remember, hitting a bottom from one's symptom, primary symptom of the disease of addiction, whether it's gambling or sex or alcohol or drugs or work or power tripping, ones have to look at their own denial. And denial is usually what affects a person's attitude, or is one of the primary components of affecting one's attitude. So moving on, uh, uh, from the honesty, the open-mindedness, the willingness, looking at one's attitudes towards spiritual principles, and see, by the program being a spiritual program and not a religious program, aren't religious. They're not religious. What I'm saying is, and it's my belief, anybody coming from a bottom of addiction, you're not religious in the sense of religious of a dogmatic, or saying being a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Christian or Muslim, even though you may have frequented those places. It's my belief that once you indulged in your primary symptoms to affect your life mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally, that what you served was your religion. If you stole for it, you put your life on the line for it, and the life of those that's close to you for it, that's what you believed in. And that's what your actions say you did. And another thing that I like to bring up, that's why taking the inventory is so, so important, and putting it on paper. Because a lot of times I would manifest things out my mouth, but my actions said something different. And we go, and so we go by what you do. If you go to court, a judge ain't gonna do too much for you about what you said. They gonna do nothing about what you thought. But everything you did, that's gonna be looked at. People in day-to-day life, they look at what you do. Yeah, some will take us, they'll say, well, you said A or B or C or D, but in the end, they're gonna look at what what you've been doing. So moving on from this, this step one, which says we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable, and it's like I brought up last night, or in the previous session, that when you stand in that step one and you're actually looking at it, you're looking at something that has happened already, not is happening, not is going to happen, but it's happened. And it's given, and so in this case, you can inventory any aspect or every aspect of that step. When it says we admit it, the admission is based on something that's already taken place. that we were powerless. And it's showing you that you were powerless, where you can inventory and actually look at your actions and your behaviors at a said situation or a given experience that brought the individual to their knees, that we were powerless over our addiction. And a lot of people, unfortunately, when they hear the word addiction, they think of a substance, and it's not a substance. The substance, or the primary substance, is the thing that or the behavior that brought you to a powerless state. In other words, to a state where you knew mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally that you were bankrupt, that you invested all your energies into a behavior or into a person, place, or thing that either it almost took your life, it caused you physical pain, you end up at the doctor's office or some type of medication. It brought you mental and emotional pain, and it brought spiritual pain. So tying it into what I was talking about previously about the religious part. The religion, especially doctrinal or religion based on any type of doctrine, from my experience firsthand and what I've seen secondhand, people, we talked to religion, but the bottom line was our particular drug or whatever it was our religion. That's what we believed in. That's what the individual believed in. So anyway, moving on. At the end of going back into the step one, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had, HAD, become unmanageable. Inside that, inside of the of our inventory, where we inventory our people, places, and things, our attitudes and our behaviors, and we look at how we responded and showed up in our own lives and in the lives of others. We look at how the primary symptom of whatever it was that was regulating our life, and it definitely wasn't no God, or it was a God, but it wasn't that God, whatever you choose to believe in. So anyway, step one leaves the individual based on an inventory, a solid inventory, whether it's written or spoken, leaves the individual to see that you didn't have no power. Let me put it in another way. Your energies were depleted. You had no energy. You was butt naked. And when I say butt naked, some people say bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, mentally bankrupt, emotionally bankrupt. That's where the person was. And how do we know? Because you showed up at the doorstep of some 12-step program talking about your situation and how you got there. Whether it's AA or NA or CA or FA or any other A, that primary symptom is what got you there. And so standing at this point, what we call at a bottom, you're standing there. And the admission is not only verbal, but it's also manifested in a physical form. I'm at some meeting, or I'm at some type of treatment center, or I'm at some place seeking help. Now I want to take a word, take time out and to look at this word, powerless. And I want to go to the root word, power. When I look at power, in my mind, I think it's some type of energy. There's a manifestation of an energy. And when I say that I'm powerless, that means I have no more energy. My energies were gone. My negative, my positive energy, there's nothing about me. I'm in a total neutral situation. and another word for neutral is I'm totally open. I am ready. And what I'm ready for is that step 2. And before I go into step 2, in one literature, it says you cannot get any recovery unless I do this step right here. It don't say step 1, but I say you can't get no recovery unless you do nothing. All steps has to be done in order to get recovery on the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional level. But specifically, step 2 is the key to recovery. It's the founding key to recovery, not step 3. I'm sorry. And what it says is we came to believe, listen to this, that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And in some fellowship, it says, I came to believe. It personalizes. It says, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could, and it didn't say would, restore me to sanity. Now, understand the word could is there even in both, in every fellowship, and even starting off in the AA fellowship, it says could, which suggests, the word could suggest that this step is conditional. And it's conditional that if I don't get the spiritual principles of this step, then I would not have no recovery. That recovery would be impossible. So it says a power greater than myself. And when I sit in the rooms and listen to in various formats, a lot of people, they take this straight to God. They say, well, God, and they start naming off, these gods. Well, I say this, why not start at the bottom? Why not start what it says, a power greater than you, greater than the self? Now, in some cases, in one book, it says, addiction is a power greater than yourself. And believe me, it is. Alcoholism is a power greater than oneself. Overeating is a power greater than oneself. Gambling is a power greater than oneself. Moving on to sports, what does sports bring? Excitement is greater than oneself. Why do I want to sit down here and watch all these TV shows with all this violence or love or drama? Those are power greater than the individual. And I say why? Because anytime I take out time and time again and watch these shows based on I like them, I'm still indulging in something that's greater than myself. So what this step 2 is basically saying to me is that at some point in my nakedness, my spiritual and emotional and mental nakedness that step 1 left me, step 2 is coming in and said, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to reclothe you. However, you have to believe. You have to believe. No, matter of fact, it don't even say you have to. It said, you should believe that I can help you. That's what it's saying. It don't saying that you have to, because step 2 is a choice. And it says it in itself. It says, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could, and that's why I say you should believe, restore me to sanity. How did I know about my own insanity? My own insanity was manifested from my experiences of step 1. That's why inside the step 1, it says, what it say? Inside of step 1, it says, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction or alcoholism. That our lives had, HAD, past tense, become unmanageable. So so when I'm adapting the step 2 process, what step 2 saying, it said, get ready, because I'm about to give you some juice. I'm about to reclothe you in some principles. And the first principle that one gets is open-minded. I've said in many forums when people said, yeah, when I first got here, if y'all had told me to stand in that corner over there on my head, I'd have done it. I'd done whatever y'all told me as long as blankety, 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 blank. That's called open-mindedness. Because the one had went through the step 1 process of having their own, of being not forced, but had the willingness to say, I've been beat. Or in some literatures it says to accept what? Complete defeat. Not defeat, but complete defeat, no reservation. So moving inside the step 2 process, when we, and in some fellowships it says we. Now I would take that we as mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. That on all 4 levels in my whole makeup, that I come to believe, or I make it a mission. That what? I need help, and wherever I can get this help from, that's where I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it from a black man, a white man, a woman. I'm gonna take it from a straight person, from a lesbian person, from a gay person. I don't care where the help come from, because it's not the person, it's the principle that this step is introducing me to. It's introducing me to not a new set of principles, but principles that were already present in my life. And how do I know? Let's move on and we'll see. So without step 2, without me looking at step 2 and admitting to my own insanity that was shown to me inside the first step, I ain't got nothing coming. Now, that don't mean I can't stay clean. Sure, I could stay clean. Sure, I could pay some bills. Sure, I could do some stuff. But however, on a spiritual level, I would never get this program. In other words, I can get it in the physical form. I can get it and when I say the physical form, I can get me a degree. I can get me a house. I can get me some job. I can get a job and start a business, make a family, get married. I could work it in the physical form. I can go to the mental and emotional side of this and work this. But in the spiritual side, I would never get. I've seen people inside the program come around the 12-step programs, and man, they came here. And when they got here, they was toe up, and they admitted that they were toe up. And then because they dismissed their primary symptom, they start getting better. They start saving up money and getting jobs and buying up property and going on trips. However, they never caught the spiritual side of the second step and what it was actually saying. So, moving on about the second step, a power. And what is the power? So what is the power, Suni, if it ain't God? If it ain't God, what is it? It's anything that can change my obsession and compulsion. Anything that will cause me to look at the principles that I use that got me in the situation in the first place. And whatever it is whatever it is at the time that my mind need changing. That's why it's a step of open-mindedness. It's not a step of God consciousness. And that's why, in admiration for the agnostic and the atheist, this step was put in because What I believe in, coming through the doors, everybody, I don't care who you is, at some point in your recovery, you was definitely, if not an atheist, an agnostic. And this sign and this step was designed to hold that personality, to not make that personality feel like you got to run up in a church or a mosque or a cathedral or do some yoga or anything. This step was designed to say, okay, man, we're going to let you start from the bottom. And really, you ain't starting from the bottom. You're starting from the top and working to the bottom. But keep coming, and we're going to see. So what the second step is basically saying to the individual is that we're going to teach you a principle called how to be open-minded. Because living self-centered, and in some cases, total self-centered, and there's a difference between the two. One is self-centered. Self-centered is when I think about me, but I might consider the people around me. I said, well, there's 3 hot dogs left. I'm only going to need 2, and I'll let the other 2 people split that other one. I mean, it's just like an example, right? But total self-centered is like, I don't care if don't know. I mean, all 3. I don't care if don't nobody eat. I mean, they should have got here before I did. So inside this total self-centered process, what step 2 is designed to do is to say, okay, I'm gonna show you how to break you. No, I take that back. You was broken in step 1. So I'm gonna show you how to put yourself together with spiritual principles. And the first one is open-minded. I had to learn how to open up my mind. And when I say open my mind, to what? A new way of thinking. To a new way of thinking, to spiritual principles. Now, where I get these principles from, how they're going to be revealed to me, that's on what is called faith. And I got some faith when I came into step 2. So step 2 was a big part of my faith because step one exposed me to my uselessness, my helplessness. When I emerged up out of step 1, I mean, I was just totally broken. No faith at all. But step 2 said, hold on. I got you. Don't panic. All you have to believe is that you can get better. And that was manifested for me through people in the rooms, the stories that I heard. Some of it was even manifested was, I saw people being out there being successful, and I said to myself, I can get my life back. My kids would tell me, Daddy, you gonna be okay, my family and my friends, And then there were some that told me that I wasn't gonna be all right, and I was still messed up, and I was, and no matter what I did, nothing could help me. And what that did, and what that attitude did in turn, it took me to a place where I was determined to show them, and a little bit was on self-will. So by the time I made it to the rooms and I started seeing people after a while, and I looked at the cars, and I looked at the jewelry, and I looked at the education that people had. But some people, they had another different type of glow about them. And it was their sureness, their surety of themselves. It was the confidence in themselves. It was the humility in themselves, because everybody didn't want to go back to school. Everybody couldn't even get them type of jobs based on how their life had turned out. So it was a lot of, by going into the rooms, I had a lot I had gained hope through watching a lot of people, you know, not a lot of people, but watching people go through whatever it is they were going through. So step 2, when it says it came to, so when it says we came to, or I came to, what it's basically saying to me is that from the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness, from a very negative attitude, from the destruction that I had put into my life, that I had got to a point where I had got clean, and I said, maybe there's some hope for me. And somebody reached out and said, there is hope. And hope, open-mindedness were 2 principles that came into my life. That I ain't gonna say came into my life, they were already there, but they illuminated into my life. And then, maybe I start going to some religious places, or I might start going to some philosophical places, or then even I might not have went to none of that. I might just stuck to the literature and had faith and hope that what I was reading, that my sponsorship family and this fellowship could help me get to a point of where I thought I could get back to, and that was spiritually sound. Because, see, what happened was, once I had stopped putting my primary symptom down, I had got some money. I had got a nice little car. I started getting kisses and hugs from the honey bunnies. I slowly started being accepted. People was inviting me out to lunch and dinner. And at some point, people was asking me to come tell my story. Can you show up here at 7 o'clock Sunday night and tell your story? And I told my story. And I listened to other people's story. And I identified with their stories. So, long story short, this step not only gave me some faith, some open-mindedness, and some hope, I started gaining acceptance again. My confidence started coming up. I started not being so hard-headed. In other words, the fear, the resentment, and the anger started to slowly surface. It came to the surface. And I have found a way to, let's just say, for the time being, maneuver. So the open-mindedness of step 2 was what got me going. Now I want to point out, I like to take a little time out and talk about something called energy. Because step 1 talks about power. Step 2 talks about power. And what is power? Power is energy. It's energy. It's a flowing, moving energy. So what happened was, in the step 2 process, my energy began to change. Let me say this. I don't want to make it seem like it just changed like that. It was in the process of change from step 2. I started glowing. People would look at me and say, look at him, he's glowing. I would look at other people and I said, look, they're glowing. Saying that to say that inside the step 2 process, inside the step 1 process, as I experienced powerlessness in step 1, got butt naked in step 1, walked into step 2, I began to be clothed in spiritual principles that began to recharge my body. Or excuse me, not only my body, but I began to recharge mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. What I was open to was the positivity that was around me. And see, it could have been a church. It could have been a mosque. It could have been some type of philosophy, yoga. It could have been some martial arts. It could have been anything like that. But I was open to anything that was positive that would change my way of thinking. I remember one time I was walking or driving or something. I was doing something. But what happened was I saw the sun and it was setting. And it looks, and I never seen it like that before. I never seen that, a sun setting like that before in my quote unquote sober mind. And I said, life is beautiful, because I remember to see a setting sun, it was like, never really too much paid attention to it. I remember one time I was laying in my bed and I heard the birds chirping. They was chirping and chirping and chirping. And it's like as the more the sun went up, the more they was chirping. They was sounding good. I mean, they was like singing or whatever. So I began more in tune with my surroundings. I could listen to people more, listen to their conversations, and a lot of times hold my point of view just to see what they had to say. This is what this stuff taught me. It taught me how to be open around my taught me to be open in my surroundings. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could. Now, what's that could? What is that could? Say, Suni, what it says could. What do could mean? It's going to be depending on how open I am. Now, remember, all the way back in the beginning, I talked about an attitude of intolerance or indifference could defeat us in our recovery. That's a quote out of one book. Well, this is that could. How intolerant am I? How intolerant and how intolerant? What is my attitude? What is my attitude? This is what step 2 is a reflection of, towards spiritual principles. Because what's happening now is spiritual principles are being implanted in me again, for lack of a better word. I might change it later on down the line. But however, what I'm saying is that an attitude of intolerance or indifference towards spiritual principles will defeat us in our recovery. And in step 2, what does it say? It says, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that's that could. So I have to check my attitude all the time. I have to understand that spiritual principles can work for me just like they could work for anybody else. And that's that attitude of intolerance or indifference. When I hear about people that relapse and they telling that story of a relapse, whether they relapsed whether they relapsed on the thing that brought them to their knees, or whether they had, and I remember back in the day we used to say, I had a spiritual relapse, or I had an emotional relapse, or I had a mental relapse before I had the physical relapse. They were going through the stages of relapse. What I'm saying is that this is the could, and this is what I have to be aware of, and that's why inventory is so important. And what I believe what I'm going to do after a while, and it's going to probably be after about maybe 10 more sessions, I'm going to introduce the inventory process, the process of how I was taught to do an inventory. And I know, people have different ways of taught, and mine, excuse me, and my way is not the only unique way, but how I was taught to do inventory from each step. Or you could just go to your local bookstore and, probably buy an inventory book, some fellowships they have like step books you can buy, and you can little workbooks, and you can do your thing just like that. So anyway, going back to the word could. Once I become closed-minded, and see, inside of step 2, open-mindedness is the foundation or the key to that step. Once I become closed-minded, then that's going to affect, how can I say this? The more closed, my open-mindedness is proportional to my recovery. I hate to use big words, but, that one fitted. Sound pretty good, too. So let me ask the crowd. Crowd, how did that word proportional sound? Yeah, so I don't want to put y'all to sleep or anything, So anyway, and plus I got this Rodecaster Pro, man. It's got a lot of little gadgets on it. Yeah, that's how I felt when I got clean. So, I'm loosening up now. And so anyway, looking at that could, and that's very important because, like I said before, a lot of times when I would listen to the stories from people, and even my own situations when I would relapse on them levels, the mental, the physical, the spiritual. I mean, I never relapsed physically. Well, I did one time. Well, I didn't even have no recovery. I was like 6 months clean, man. I wasn't even 6 months clean, and I didn't follow the suggestions. They told me to stay away out of bars and stuff like that, and I just had to go to a bar, and eventually I just had to drink. I was like about 3-4 months clean then. So anyway, going back to what I was saying about the recovery, the recovery part, what was I talking about? I was talking about before I got off into my little stuff like that. But anyway, moving on, the inventory. Yes. Step 2 is the key to that step is open-minded. Is open-minded or open-mindedness. In other words, that I should be in a state of being open-minded in my life, and I'm not going to, create a counter situations, so forth and so forth about being open-minded. Open-minded is open-minded. That's all it is. And now what I believe is referring to is open-minded in the implication of spiritual principles. That's it. It don't mean like open-minded. Should I go to the dope house and pick my girlfriend up, or should I eat 5 pancakes instead of 10, or should I take $50 to the gambling joint instead of 100? Nah, that's not what that means. What it means is open-minded towards principles or how they may be revealed to me in the usage or even adaptation of spiritual principles. And he said, like Suni, well, what is a spiritual principle? Spiritual principles, you might want to look that up. And, I want to give my phone number. Let me get my phone number. In case anybody want to call. I should have had this sitting out already, but my phone number is, and let me tell you what my phone number is. My phone number is 317-344-9752, 317-344-9752. And if I could switch it over, I'd take a question and answer, which I'm going to have question and answer in about maybe 10 minutes. But I want to talk about this step 2 thing, when it talks about we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And the most obvious insanity is my step one inventory. Now again, what I was saying about this program earlier, if you got a few months and, if you brand new and you want to sit here and listen to the steps, fine. I encourage you to. But at the same time, if you've been around for a minute and, you looking to hear something different, or let's just say your mind is open, this is what this is about. This YouTube channel is about. The 12 Steps, a universal spiritual program. So anyway, moving back into the step, and I'd like to take time out and say, Mike Johnson, thanks for giving me a call today. I really appreciated that, brother, because, you've been very inspirational to me over the years, and I got inspired to do this thing by being, quote unquote, a follower of Mike Johnson. Yeah, and I tell anybody, hell yeah, I follow Mike Johnson any day of the week. Right now, RAT now. So anyway, moving on with the second step. Part of the insanity that can come, that do come from this step or can be seen is my resentment, my angers, and my fears. And we'll get back into that later on, further on down the line. Resentment, angers, and fears. These are the things that can make an open mind close. Oh, yeah. Anytime an individual has become closed-minded inside the Second Step Project, believe me, those three negative principles, and they are principles, but they're negative principles, they are right there in the forefront. A resentment, anger, or fear. Resentment, anger, and fear. And so let me go over this. This is what I learned about what a resentment is. A resentment, well, let's start off with anger. Anger, it means that I'm mad about something. Something has gotten me mad, whether it's a person, a place, thing, or a situation. I'm mad and it's fresh. It's fresh. Let's say it might be 3 months fresh or 4 months fresh. I done got mad 4 months ago because somebody done stepped on my shoes. Right. Well, a resentment is a past anger that I live over and over as if it happened today. So the reason why I said, 3 months, I put in, it don't necessarily have to be 3 months as far as being angry about something, but I just put a little reference point out there. And I said that if a person has been mad, if you've been mad for 3 months about something that happened 3 months, you're in resentment. You're in a resentment phase, because you're mad about some shit that happened, some stuff that happened 3 months ago, just like it happened today, and you have chose not to resolve it for whatever reason. And that actually brings on what? Closed-mindedness. I'm mad. They stepped on my shoes 3 months ago. Who do they think they are? Instead of saying, you stepped on my shoes back in Christmas. It's July right now, and you stepped on my shoes in Christmas. And every time I see you, I get mad. I need to resolve this. Yeah. So fear. And, fear is fear, and it could be fear of the past, fear of the future, fear of the present. But those three culprits are usually, and I ain't gonna say usually, is, and I'll make that a definite. They are always somewhere around when the person's mind becomes closed. Yes, I gotta give me a pillow for this chair. I'll get one the next time. So anyway, for those who are listening, for anybody that's listening, the resentment, the anger, and the fear. Resentment, the anger, and the fear are obvious insanities. They are also obvious insanities because of what they bring on. Resentment, anger, a person can be so resentful at another person, they'll try to destroy them. You can get angry at a person and go into rage. You can get fearful of a person and do anything from avoidance or even a situation. It could be a person, it could be a place, or it could be a thing. So these obvious insanities inside the step 2 process needs to be looked at, because what are they? They are powers greater than self. Yes. Resentment, anger, and fear. So a lot of times a power greater than ourselves don't even have to be something positive. Even one book says that the disease of addiction is a power greater than oneself, and that's in one 12-step. That's in one 12-step literature. It's in some literature of one 12-step literature. So moving on and looking at the second step, I understand why the second step is so important and why recovery is not possible until I learn how to look at the most obvious influences around me, or that's influenced my energy, or what other energies that can influence and even overpower my energy, that recovery would or would not be possible. Because what happens is this: inside the second step gives me something that was taken away by the symptoms of my addiction, and that's the freedom of choice. And that's what one thing that a human being has. The human being has freedom of choice. Can I hear for freedom of choice? Can I hear for getting the freedom of choice back? So anyway, moving on, and not really moving on. I had got a phone call. So anyway, the second step will give you your choices back, but they're conditional. And they're conditioned on being open-minded. So at this point, I want to take the time out. I was talking with a recovering person today, and we talked about our society. And inside the society, this society is made up of addiction. It's one big addiction, It's one big, whether it's gambling, whether it's sex, whether it's drugs, whether it's being addicted to drama, whether it's being addicted to working, eating, We're one big, and this is what this society thrives on: addiction. And I'll say at this point, that's why I believe, my personal belief is, if one connects themselves to the society mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, you will become an addict. Or you have addictive tendencies running in you right now. I'm going to tell you something, man, men and women. It ain't nobody that I don't know that's an addict. I'm serious. Nobody. No one. I haven't seen one yet. People can tell me that they're not, but when I look, what they're saying is not consistent with what they're doing. And even me, and I've been in the recovery game for 34 years and some months. And I'm gonna tell you, my addictions they flare. They flare up. They'll flare up over here. And sometimes I might have flare-ups in 2 areas. That's when I gotta be careful. I have to look at what's going on. And that's another thing about step 2. Step 2 say, all right, for example, if I say, that's how the statement I just made about society. I said, well, this society it thrives on addiction. And you all know it don't. I ain't no addict. But you might have diabetes. How'd you get there? I mean, if you wasn't born that way. You know all the statistics of your favorite sports team and you ready to fight if somebody say something wrong. Or your favorite sports personality, Or you just love to eat something or feel good about something. Yeah, man. So inside the society, man, we already addictive prone. We're already prone to addiction. And that's why I believe like certain personalities, they would say stuff like be in the world but not of it. or they would say, the world is a believer's prison, or don't be so materialistic, and so forth and so forth. So anyway, I've been talking about this. I've been talking about, let me check my time because I got to go to bed. And guess what I didn't hit? Record. All right then. So anyway, I did not hit the record button. So anyway, on the Rodecaster Pro. But I am live streaming. So anyway, I'm going to sign off on this one, and I'm going to redo this again tomorrow because I have to have everything recorded. So anyway, inside the second step, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It is a very conditional step. The step is also the step that's going to start putting us together spiritually, to move spiritually and prepare us for the third step. And the third step, it says, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. And in some fellowships to say, we made a decision. And I say the we means mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. However, do the step work different? I don't think so. I really don't. I think you get the same benefit no matter how you use it, because why? Intention is always a indicator. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. And tomorrow I will be going into step 3. I will be going into step 3 tomorrow and looking at the other 2 steps first, short narrative, and then we'll move into step 3. Now, what's the goal of this program? What's the goal or what's the aim of me going over the 12 steps? Well, number 1 is for me. Number 2 is for anybody that wants to benefit. And then number 3 is to show, or just to well, I'll just say it's for me. There's a saying that says we keep what we have by giving it away. And this is the level that I'm giving it away on. All right, ladies, gentlemen, I want to thank everybody who tuned in for the past 50-something odd minutes. If this thing is posted to YouTube, fine. And tomorrow I'll be doing third step. And the third step says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. That decision is being made now that I have a clue about addiction. Now that I understand that I have no power, or the power that I was exerting, or the energy that I was exerting was feeble, And that now that I've learned how to recharge myself through spiritual principles, I am ready to connect, not with a God like necessarily like a God like a God based in dogma or a God of dogma or some particular type of personality or something. Nah, what this is saying is that a higher a higher energy source, the primary source of all energy. How about that? So anyway, I like to say thanks. Thank y'all for tuning in. Those who are tuning in, tune back in. And with that, I like to say peace. Take care of yourself. Remember, your health, I'm telling you, is all you got. So take care of it. Love yourself. Cherish yourself. Help somebody out. Yeah, help somebody out. All right, thank you. And let me find my button right here.